My best friend is the most beautiful human being I know, she doesn't deserve the cards life dealt her. I F35 met my best friend, Mary F35 on our first day of school. We were 5 years old. We have been best friends for 30 years. In Mary's 35 years of being on Earth, she has experienced trials in her life that read like a tragic novel. Mary is the eldest of 3 children. Her parents split on our last year of primary school. Her mom moved the kids to the countryside away from everything and everyone she knew. We stayed in touch as pen pals. We would write to each other every few weeks, collating our news and sharing our hopes and dreams for the future. We would talk about how fabulous our lives are going to be when we grew up. At 14, Mary moved back in with her dad so that she could come back to her old life here. Before long, she became the target of her depressive alcoholic father. She would often call me in tears, her dad screaming in the background. She would ask me to come and get her, to take her out of the house and get away. Mary would stay at my house for days until her dad would apologize and she would go home, just for this all to happen again in a few weeks. Sometimes her lunch was a soup packet. She wore a pair of my old shoes for years because her dad couldn't afford to buy her a pair. We were just young teens, we didn't know how to deal with any of this. I don't think I will ever really know the true extent of what went on in those years of her life. School was terrible for Mary. She had no interest in it and she was painfully shy. She couldn't afford to go to school proms, she rarely participated in class, and her grades were average. Mary had a crush on the most popular boy in school. She gave him a letter one day with her feelings about him. The letter was posted up around the school the same day. Eventually Mary left her dad's abusive household before she finished school. Her dad disowned her after that and turned the family against her. She worked minimum-paying jobs, not knowing what to do with her life. She moved cities a few times, but she never stayed in one place for long. Mary met her husband in her 20s. She became a teacher, got married, a house, they conceived a baby and then immediately he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. He died soon after their baby was born. Her late husband's ex-wife became a problem. Years and hundreds of thousands of dollars in lawyers' fees later, Mary had to concede her part of the will. I can't begin to understand how devastating this period of her life was. She was a new mom, a new widow, and barely had a roof over her head. I don't think I had ever seen so much grief in one person. Mary went on to have 2 more children. But she never really moved on from her husband's death. Every time I saw Mary, she was tired, she was stressed, she was struggling. She was always just that little bit away from the end of her rope. 1 year ago Mary had a traumatic brain injury. Recovery will be months, they said. But I never saw her get any better. In fact, she steadily became worse. She would slur her speech, her eyes would unfocus often, she would find it hard to communicate. Months went by and she seemed to lose more cognitive function. Her text messages became harder to decipher. I last saw and heard from Mary 6 months ago. I thought she was just busy. Then my messages stopped being delivered. I gave it a few more weeks. I asked around and found out she had been admitted to hospital 6 weeks ago. I found where she was and visited her today. I was told it was bad. But I didn't know how bad she would be. When I walked in she was facing away from me. I called out "Mary" about 5 times before she turned around. When she recognized me she cried. We cried together. She is unable to talk or communicate short of pointing and croaking. She walks with an unsteady gait and she drools when she eats or drinks. She cannot follow a conversation for too long. She will blank out and look surprised like she hadn't heard me talking. She points to her 3 teddies on her chair. They represent her 3 children she hasn't seen in almost 3 months, because she is unable to care for them anymore. Sometimes she is completely lucid for a few minutes. And I see her, the real her, the Mary the first haven't seen in years. The lights are on, she is listening intently to my story. She has expression on her face, her dry, cracked lips and a little smile. Her eyes are focused on mine and we are 5 years old again, before life became such a burden. But then it's gone again, so quick. Mary is only 35. She has been dealt such a bad hand in life. She is such a sweet, caring, and kind soul and she didn't deserve any of what life threw at her. I believe Mary was really, truly happy at only one point in her life, and that was ripped away from her way far too soon. I don't know what I was wanting to get from writing this up. I want to yell and shout and scream about how unfair and cruel life has been to Mary. But it's the middle of night so this is all I can manage right now. Update. Mary passed away 3 days ago. When I posted about Mary, no one knew what was wrong with her. All we knew was that she was out for a run, fell, and received a traumatic brain injury for her troubles. When I saw her in hospital the first time, I thought it was bad. I visited every fortnight. Every fortnight was a shock to see how rapidly she was deteriorating. The second time I visited, she was staring at the TV, watching her favorite childhood on repeat for hours and hours. The third time, she could no longer dress herself. The fourth, she was choking on her food. This didn't make sense. Weeks later, finally, a diagnosis. Dementia. At 35. Mary was transferred to a home soon after. The last time I saw her, she was bedbound, her mobility long gone. She couldn't feed, bathe, or toilet herself. She didn't recognize her family. She lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, hands locked in an uncomfortable grasp at the air. She hadn't spoken in months. She couldn't. I sat with her. I spoke with her, but it seemed to agitate her. The room was silent for so long. Except for the constant and rhythmic tapping of her heel against the bed rail. Hours of tap-tap-tapping. I could see she had developed a callus from who knows how long of tapping. I held her hand and then massaged her feet. I was powerless. I cried in the car on the way home. About a week ago, Mary could no longer breathe on her own. I knew it was near. She was transferred to hospice, and I waited for the green light from her mother to let her friends know we could visit one last time. My phone buzzed. It was the message I was waiting for. But not the one I wanted. Why? Why did this have to happen to my friend? You were meant to watch your children grow up, be at their prize givings, cheer them on at Saturday morning sports games, hold their hands on the way to school, hold their hearts through breakups, and hold your grandchildren's tiny hands one day. You were meant to live your life and then grow old. We were meant to get there together. We met when we were 5. We lived the last 30 years together, supporting each other through thick and thin, the best and worst times, the hard and the easy. There was nothing I couldn't get through without Mary. She always knew what to do, what to say. She gave and she gave and she gave. It wasn't just Mary's life that was unfair, but her death was unjust, too. How could someone who fought so hard end with such a demise? She was resilient, she was hardworking, and she was strong. My sister, I hope so, so much that wherever you are now, you are finally eternally happy and whole and free. I miss you.